Yeah, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Mr. Bean from Western Australia, and I have a special person to introduce you all to tonight. His name is Eric Mitchell. G'day there, Eric. How are you, mate?
Doing great, Mr. B. How are you today?
Oh, mate, hey, it's another day, another day, another dollar. You know what I mean? Yes, mate. Yes. Look, look, I want to talk about your experiences tonight. I mean, I know your story, but I want my viewers here to kind of hear your side of it and what it's like to go through. Because as an experiencer myself, I know what I went through, and I think everybody deals with it totally differently. Um, I mean, we get affected differently because we experience different things, and I like to hand that over to you, Eric, and you give your story there, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. God, man, it's been 10 years now, July 28th of this year. Um, yeah, nobody knows the Mr. B, the whole story of the last 10 years of my life. I wake up every day in disbelief. I look at the floor, I look at my toes, and I think, this is not my life. How did I get here? But I didn't believe in the subject. As a child, you grow up watching mom and dad. So if something weird happens, they go, "Oh, it was just the wind," or "Oh, it was just that." So a child tends to mimic that type of thing. And don't talk to those Area 51, 1947 Roswell crash people, son, because they're crazy. So you grow up that
Mm.
way, and so I kind of did, and I never looked into anything like that. I was always drawn to books on Egypt and fascinating things like that, but never the paranormal, or what I like to call the paraquiet, because people just don't talk about it. They happen to everyone at least once in their lifetime, but they just social stigma. But it was see, I was a single dad. I had just left my wife, and the kids moved in with me, so I got a cheap little apartment on a short dead end street called Milk Lane, right here in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And there was one night the kids were stressing me out. When you're a single parent, you hide in the bathroom or you hide in your car. That's the only two places you got, and they both have
Mm.
locks, so you're good. But I went outside, the homework and the Disney films with the kids, and just a normal day. And I went outside for a smoke. I laid on the hood of my car, and I don't talk about this much, but I'm going to, because I'm starting to know the science of these things, and who wants to be the woo woo guy, right? But
Mm.
I laid on the hood of my car, I closed my eyes, and it was almost like someone took a really, really strong finger and just knocked me right in the forehead right here. And I felt the impact so bad that my eyebrows squeezed together. And just like that, I mean, I was looking with my eyes closed, which is scary as hell. If it's never happened to you before, with my eyes closed, I was looking at a tunnel, and it looked like a what you would see on TV, like a wormhole. It wasn't straight, it curved, it was very fast. I felt the vertigo. My body was definitely not feeling mobile. I was
Yeah,
just
I
in
can
trance.
relate to that. I remember through my
Yeah,
experience, I mean, I just went to bed and, fell asleep. And you know how you get that falling sensation? And
yeah,
instead of falling,
yeah.
and, I didn't wake up. I was kind of within this bright light. I wouldn't call it a tunnel. I was kind of ascending. And it's the most weirdest thing. It's so real, so surreal. And hey, by the way,
Mhm.
before I go any further, I must go say good day to Terry. We've got a friend, Terry Rising, online there watching us here at the moment.
Hey, Terry.
G'day, Terry. Thank you for joining us. And yes, and anyway, getting back to the story, yes. So it was so real,
Yeah,
and I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Anyway, carry on there.
well, it probably lasted 15, 20 seconds. It was pretty
Right.
scary because it moved so fast, incredibly fast. And by the time I could feel my body, I jumped off mind you, I was not tired. I did not fall asleep. I was there long enough to smoke a cigarette, and I wasn't asleep. I just can't explain that. I was wide awake. And that time of night was always routine with the kids and the baths and homework and dinner. I just, went out for my smoke. But as soon as I felt my body, it scared the hell out of me. I jumped off my car. I didn't look left or right. I ran straight to the door like a child, scared child. I could not believe that I had witnessed something so clear with my eyes closed. It's if I was looking at you right now. So that really bothered me. It did bother me. I got the kids to bed. I laid down. And next thing you know, I'm waking up. It's around 4 a.m. and I'm standing outside of my apartment right next to the car where it happened. And I'm kind of confused. I don't know how I got outside. I'm looking, my left shoulder is facing the door and my right shoulder is facing the dead end of the street. And I'm facing this way. And I'm looking at my door like, how did I get outside? What's going on here? And of course, I see something glowing over here. So I turn to my right, and just off the ground was a 40-foot in diameter glowing orange sphere. It rippled like the sun. It didn't illuminate anything around it. It was
No
bright
reflection
enough to where you
whatsoever.
have none whatsoever. So
Amazing.
I mean, even someone that dropped out of school in the third grade could tell you that light is not supposed to act that way,
Yeah, it's
because the
true.
whole street, the whole street should have just lit up. It was so bright, but the light didn't leave it at all, and it was just marbling like the sun in front of me.
Well, it's probably
And
confined in its own bubble. You know what I mean? Its own energy field,
yeah,
its own bubble's
yeah.
confined. Yeah, like a barrier.
Oh, it is. It is. But I stared at this thing thinking, is there a blown transformer nearby that's causing a optical illusion? Am I looking at, just all these things go through your mind. And I thought about approaching it, and then I thought, I better not, So I left my door wide open. I went inside. I turned on the news immediately. I was thinking maybe some weird weather phenomenon might be on the news or something like that, but it really bothered me. Brewed some coffee to make sure I was wide awake, and I kept that door open. So I sat down on my couch so I can lean and just keep looking at it while the news is on. And this thing is just outside my door, 40 feet in diameter, and just not bobbing or weaving. It was stationary, just off the ground. It wasn't touching the ground. And so many things went through my mind. I looked at the clock. It was 4:19. So I figured maybe I woke up out there about 4 a.m. I was out there basically 20 minutes looking at it. And so my thought was, okay, first light, I'm going to go out there and look around to see where the optical illusion is coming from. There's got to be some kind of light bouncing off a trash can, or it's just too incredible to look at. And about 6:30, I poked my head around again, and it was gone. So I walked outside. I looked all over the place, and to my frustration, there was nothing there. The object had gone, completely. So, throughout the day, I'm normally the charismatic guy at work, keeping up the rapport, joking, laughing. But I was really quiet that day because it shook me. It really, really contained all my thoughts and wonder. And by the end of my shift of that day, I remember getting a tooth drilled at the dentist office and reading a science magazine that talked about ball lightning. And I thought, that's it. It was ball lightning, and all of a sudden my day was just fine again. I went to the grocery store. I picked up a nice dinner for the kids. I went home. We did the whole routine all over again. So I go outside, single father life or single mom life.
Hey, man, I've been, as a single dad, I've been there, mate. I've been there.
You have to have the same exact routine every day, because if something slips up, it's all over for you. So, at 9:30, I go out for my smoke, and it's a one-story apartment. You can You can look at it. It's Hot Springs, Arkansas. Um, Milk Lane, MILK, like the drink. And I was
Right.
just kind of pacing my one-story building back and forth, and I'm looking at that area like, my God, ball lightning. I could have woke up the kids. My daughter has a camera phone. This was back in 2013. I had a little flip phone, and I refused to switch to smartphones. But
I
I couldn't
I call
believe,
those I call those tracky phones. You know what I mean? They're like,
yeah, yeah,
beam me up, Scotty.
yeah. Beam me up. And here you are. Look at you. You're in a spaceship. I'm just here on Earth,
Oh,
being
mate,
boring.
oh, yeah.
But
Yeah, you like me view?
I love it. I love it. I'm that
You
little
know
speck right there behind you. But see me wave? But
yeah. Oh, yeah,
um,
yeah.
I was just, pacing back and forth and thinking about, man, I should have woke up the kids. I should have got a picture of this thing because it
Yeah.
was close. I could have took off my shoe and, hit this thing. It was so close to me, and I was that close to ball lightning. I thought, wow. So, I'm
Actually,
just
if
pacing that
yeah,
apartment.
keep talking now. I'll see if I can bring up your photograph of your ball lightning, mate. Okay,
Sure.
just hang in there. Yeah, carry on, carry on. I'll
Yeah. But I'm pacing the apartment going back and forth, and I keep looking at that area, and all of a sudden this thing turns on really slowly. It was pitch black, and then all of a sudden this thing turns on real slow, and then it starts to move and blinks off really slow. And to me it was ominous. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It would blink slowly back on and then slowly back off, and this thing made a horseshoe type of circulation motion all the way around me. So by the time it was done, it was just above my one-story apartment door. So maybe I'd say 12, 15 feet above my face. And I'm looking at this thing, and I can feel my eyes just, oh God, like a push and pull at the same time. And then it started like a throbbing feeling, but it flashed twice really fast and shot away over the cattle field. And the amount of speed, it would be just catastrophic, because in my mind, that amount of speed, the air intake alone would have beat the hell out of me,
I'm sorry,
and
I'm
just
sorry I
that.
couldn't. I'm sorry about that. I couldn't pull up that photograph, unfortunately.
Oh,
I
oh no,
didn't.
that's
I
fine.
should have
That's
set
fine.
it. I should have set it up earlier on. Never mind, my fault.
Yeah.
Carry
Mr. B,
on.
I'll load you up with plenty of pictures for next time. Got plenty of shots of these things. But I thought, the sonic boom and the air displacement was just going to rip my body apart. That's how
Mm.
fast this thing took off. It was in sight, and then you
Look,
just see a orange yellow streak, and it was gone, just
yeah,
gone.
actually,
And
I can relate because back in 2016, it was I think it was the 8th of April. It was 20 to 5 in the morning. I was doing some maintenance work, and it was half an hour before I started work actually. And um, on the way, I was driving, and in my peripheral vision, I saw this like it's like a shooting star went, but it just stopped. It just stopped on a dime. it,
yeah,
it just stopped on
I'm
the
sorry.
dime. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
never seen anything stop so sudden, but I couldn't do anything at the time I was driving. So by the time I parked the car at work, and then I kind of stood outside and I looked up and I see this little star moving. And honestly, mate, there was a large craft on my left, and there was a tiny little star moving. But I couldn't believe the speed it was traveling at and how it
Hmm.
stopped. It's like if you're a
Yeah.
bug, you would have splattered everywhere,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
carry
It
on.
is incredible. It is
I do. I
incredible.
can relate. I can relate. I can relate.
Yeah, I was just standing there. I know my hands were shaking. I know my knees were locked up. When you scare a goat and their knees locked up and they just fall over. That's
Mm.
that's about where I wish I can come across like this tough guy that can handle it all. But my knees literally locked up, and I duck walked into the house. I was so scared. Shut the door, locked it, and I went straight to my daughter's computer. And as you know, I'm terrible with computers, but I know where the Google bar is. So I'm looking all night. I was up till
Can
3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
I ask you, during all this experience you had, did you find you suffered with any kind of anxiety? for all this? I mean,
Yeah.
real anxiety and panic
Yeah.
attacks.
Which is, it's not me to do that. I'm a laid back guy. I mean, I'm the guy that can handle any situation, defuse situations. I never panic, and I ended up with anxiety all the
Well,
time. You
well,
know,
I tell you, well, I'll tell you now. Before my true proper experience, abduction, I would call it. Mate, I was a total arsehole. I mean, as a character, I really was. I mean,
yeah,
an arrogant pig. Don't look at me sideways because I'll just snot you one. And I was just an arsehole, and I considered myself a pretty of a hard nut. But after that experience, man, I just kind of I fell apart like a marshmallow. And
yeah. It humbles you. It
yeah,
really does.
and all suddenly, I mean, as much as my experience itself was so, how can I put it, serene, and it was so beautiful. It's like it was a euphoria. It was wonderful. But when I woke up, it was like somebody punched me in the chest, and from that day on, for about 6 months, mate, I just suffered chronic anxiety attacks, panic attacks. I'd be in the shop, and all of a sudden, light flickers, and bang, heart starts
Yeah,
jumping out of my chest. I leave a trolley full of groceries just and run for it. And I go home, strip off my clothes to my jocks, lay on the tile floor because I'm profusely sweating.
yeah.
And I know I went through something more dramatic, and I don't know what. I can't remember it, but
Yeah,
I am looking into that. But the point is, I can
yeah.
relate how it changed me as an individual. It did make me humble, and it did
Hmm.
kind of make me very sensitive, actually, very sensitive to lots of things. But the crazy thing about it is, and I think that you have a side to this too, how it affect your mental capacity. But from
Hmm.
that moment, I could look at the phone literally seconds before it rings, knew it was going to ring.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and it's like from my mother, I knew to something wrong 24 hours before she passed away. I even called around to every member of the family, and then spoke to my mother, and she was fine. Within 24 hours,
Hmm.
she passed away in my arms. And the same thing with my father. And it's all these. I seemed, I was at a friend's place one day. I went and visited him, da da da. And as I was talking to my friend Luigi, his name was South African Italian, and his wife turned around and said to me, "Well, aren't you going to say anything about my new stools I've got around the kitchen bench?" And I said, "Yes, yes, Gloria." I said, "They're beautiful stools." She said, "How did you know that?" I said, "You just said," and no, I never said a word. That's exactly what she had. And Luigi said, "You never said a word, man." And no, I heard her turn around and say, "Well, aren't you going to say something about my stools?" Because they're beautiful, beautiful chrome, beautiful modern stools. But I heard her say it. But there's all these weird and freaky things that started happening in my life. I mean, I'd be laying in bed and there'd be on the bedroom door, nobody there.
Hmm.
You know, it's weird. I'll get up and walk through the house and everything. Anyway, so that's how it changed my life. So
Yeah.
please carry on. Please
All
carry,
all of
because
ours, all of ours.
I'm relating. I'm relating with you.
Yeah, yeah, and it's real. I mean, not to jump too far ahead, but I've been a party to a lot of research on people like us, and it's a lot of it's explained, it's explainable. Before it was just woo woo, but now that universities are involved, a lot has come along. So much so that my jaw was on the floor for 3 months. I've been afraid to say so many things because I know how they sound. But you know, I hate hearing myself say some things because like 34 years of my life, those were the crazy people, and all of a sudden I have to be one of them. For the longest time, I had a delusion. I had a delusion that I had to have been mentally ill, or maybe I had some sort of brain tumor, and I could go to the doctor and get fixed up and see a psychiatrist, maybe take some pills, and I'll be fine in 6 months, no problem. And that
And
was
with
my
me,
daydream.
and it was me for years till
Yeah,
about 2012. Well, not 2012, about 2008, something like that. I honestly believe I had a near-death experience, which I try to
Yeah.
push aside. And my mate gave me a book to read and says, "Oh yeah, about near-death experience." And I read it and it didn't resonate with me at all. Didn't resonate. Now, of course, with the birth of
No.
the internet, and those days they didn't have Messenger, and that they had what they call bulletin boards. and,
Yeah. Yeah.
and of course, I started reading some
Yeah.
stuff, and I said, "Hello, what? These people are describing the shit I did bloody looked at." You know what I mean? And I thought,
Hmm.
oh God. So, but
Yeah.
as I've looked into it more, it's like, well, the jigsaw puzzle started coming together. The picture started showing, and I thought, oh, it's like revelation. It's like, wow, okay, oh my God, and it was profound. It was revelation. It was, well, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, as you
Yes.
say, and I agree with you. When you do realize it, it's difficult to tell people what you've
Hmm.
experienced. They look at you like you're freaking crazy. Say, oh yeah.
Of course. Of course. I used to look at people
What
like that.
clinic did you come out of? Or
Yeah, I know. And we missed the boat. I hear they have great Jello, nice padded floors and rooms, people that take care of you. I mean, can't we just go and have that? I want that. I've been tested by multiple people, and with this look of sorrow on my face, you just please diagnose me. See, I'm nuts. But they no, they can't find that.
No,
Maybe a hint of
just give me
PTSD.
plenty of sedatives, mate. I'll sleep it away.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do my best too. I pay for the whole package. Like when you go to the spa, you got to get the whole package. So
Right.
when I go to a psychiatrist, I want the whole thing. So drugs, alcohol, screening, everything. So I didn't test dirty for any of that either.
No,
Um, but um, but no, on my last one, and I think you're gonna like this one. It was dependency on nicotine
yeah,
and trouble adjusting to a trauma.
yeah, yeah.
I said, why can't you just give me PTSD? I want a check. Can I get a check or maybe some Jello? I mean, I'm paying you here. And the doctor's laughing. He said, Eric, with your sense of humor, whatever this is, you're going to get through it. You're a well-rounded
Well,
person. You're going to make it. You can't put PTSD. You could do it with a pen. I'll give you my pen, and you can keep the pen when I leave. And that'll be your pen now. I just need you to write 4 letters, 4 letters, and I can get a great script and just mellow out for a while. But that was that was the daydream. But I done the whole route. But the third
May
time
I
this
ask?
came around.
May I ask? Was there any government involvement with you at all, like Men in Black
Oh
or?
yeah, oh yeah,
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 yeah. Are you allowed
yeah.
to talk about that?
I will never ever sign an NDA.
Okay. Tell us
But
about it, mate. Tell us your experience there. I mean, I
well,
think people
the third
need to hear this. You know.
Yeah, they do because I've seen so many bullet beat stories out there that
Mm.
I've lived this, so I know what matches up and what doesn't, and I've worked with over 3,000 experiencers in 127 different countries. I'm probably creeping up on 4,000. I've talked down suicides. Every single organization that helps experiencers, they know my name for a crisis call and they patch me through immediately. So I know this really, really well. We're talking about when I just hit inception, but it's been 10 years of 4 hours a night of sleep, maybe an hour during the day, and everything else that I do is this, because I want answers. I could, live my life and play golf and go fishing and maybe like football and wear a fanny pack at the mall. I could do all those things that people do. But my passion is this. And it's not because I'm interested in the subject. It's because the subject is interested in me.
Did you
So
ever spend
I'll
any
never.
particular time at the university where they actually kept you there, like an inpatient sort of thing, to kind of they do studies on you or anything like that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not as extensive as we want to.
Mm.
But as the old saying goes, leave the best for last. I've even been in recording studios where they're testing me in places like that. But yeah, there's been quite a bit, but not all of it.
I
There's
saw a
going to
little
be
bit of
all
your
of it.
documentary. I saw a little bit of your documentary where you're with another gentleman. And you put a microphone into your ear, right? And
Yeah,
you're actually
yeah,
recording the brain waves of your
yeah,
brain ticking over, sort of thing, and it was showing up
yeah,
on the oscilloscope. It's absolutely
yeah.
amazing.
Well, yeah, that's what Harvard says. But yeah, yeah, we're definitely going to get into a lot of that. To get to that, I'll tell you what happened. I just bumped
Okay,
my
fine.
desk, but
Yeah.
the third time this thing came around, my car was overheating on the way home, and this was right after the first and second one. The very next day, I came home, my car was overheating. My buddy across the street, his name's Dan, and he spent 2 terms at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He worked at the Air Force at Wright-Pat, and he was home with his wife, and he was out. He was done, did his full terms, and he became a good friend of mine. We would every day, we'd go outside and smoke cigarettes because neither one of us smoke in the house, and we became great friends. So he sees me pull up overheating, and we pop the hood open, and we're looking at all the rubber lines to see where the leak is, and unfortunately, it turned out to be the water pump. $350 part, single dad, working 2 jobs. Great, right? But he noticed I was a little more stressed than normal. I was having panic attacks, and that's not like me at all. And he gave me a big hug and stuff, and went inside and got a Bud Light. And I put it on the hood of my car, and we talked a little while. He said, "Eric, whatever you're going through, it's going to be all right. You've been through a lot before. You can make it through this." He said, "Man, I'm going to go inside. My wife is cooking, and she's a great cook." So I was like, "Man, bring me a plate." And he started to go inside, and I reached over to, grab that beer. I was going to drink the damn thing. And I was standing on my own shoelace. So when I stepped backwards, I untied my shoe, and I'm like, "Oh, great. What next?" I'm just having a bad day. So I reach down, I'm tying my shoe, and I feel this light vibration on the top of my head. It's almost like the chills, when you're at the urinal and your whole body just shakes for a second. It was just something like that. But all of a sudden, it's like someone turned up the volume all the way. And if you've ever been to like a rock concert and feel the vibration hit your chest from the speakers, if you can imagine that times a million, it knocked me directly to the ground. I mean, hit me like a bullet, right in the head. So, I felt it throughout my whole body, but mostly my head. And to tell you how engulfed I knew I was throwing up because my throat was open for a long period of time, and then it would close. Um, you could have kicked me like a football, and I would have known I was rolling, but I wouldn't have felt the impact. I don't think I would have felt the impact at all. It was that engulfed, and maybe 12, 15 seconds it stopped. I felt like a magnet underneath this, just rocking back and forth. It didn't make sense at the time, but I pushed myself off the ground and I looked up because I knew that's where it was coming from. And here's this orange sphere. It flashed twice again really fast and shot off the opposite way it did the night before. So I laid there in the dark. And I know most people would think, "Oh my God, you probably jumped up and ran away." That primitive mind kicks in and it's dark outside. I laid there for 20 minutes looking at everything to make sure because I saw how fast that thing can move. And I wanted to make it to my door because somehow I'd be safe if I made it to the door. You put the
Mm.
deadbolt on. I mean, it's ridiculous thinking, but it's fear. So I did. I laid there for a good 20 minutes. My nose was bleeding. I know my left ear was bleeding because I went to, wipe the sweat off my face and it was blood. And so it was complete primitive mode. I thought I was being attacked. I thought something was trying to kill me, and I had
Yeah,
no idea
I've
what it
heard
was.
that many times before by experiences. It's either bleeding ears or bleeding nose. In some cases, bleeding eyes as well.
Yeah, yeah, it does happen. It's rare, but it does happen. But I made it to my bathroom floor, laid on the cold tiles. I was going
So
to
you know
throw
what
up
I'm
again.
talking about then? You know what I'm talking
Oh, I
about?
do. I do.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. I
yeah.
do. I do. But I had burns on my shoulders and on my face. I was wearing a tank
Oh,
top.
yeah. Mm.
My eyes, my vision has always been 20/20. My vision was really bad diminished. Um, yeah, I was a pretty bad mess, but I passed out on the floor. Didn't quite make it to the toilet. I woke up about 5 o'clock the next morning and
Are you
fully
saying
clothed. I
your
had
eyes?
vomit.
you saying your eyes deteriorated after that experience?
Yeah, that was the first day I got glasses. Yeah, I've always had 20/20 vision.
Welcome to the club, mate. Same thing happened to me
Yeah,
only a few years ago. I've had implants put in my eyes because of it. How
yeah,
about that? Hmm. Strange.
yeah.
Okay.
It will do that. It will do that, and it's not strange. It's not strange. I talked to some
Oh, well, it's the
scientists that
first time I've heard of
work.
it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, no, I talked to some scientists about it, and they said, well, that definitely sounds like someone working on electromagnetic fields, because when you have high-powered electromagnetic field magnets, and a scientist gets too close, it pushes and pulls on your eyes at the same time, and your vision, goes down. So that's what it sounded like to them. I had no explanation. I'm not a physicist. I don't know what's going on, but being exposed to something that close, it could only be an electromagnetic field from their standpoint. So that's a scientific point of view. To me, it was woo woo until I talked to a scientist, and that's what they
Was there
said.
any upside to
Um,
it? Was there any upside to all this experiences you've had? Was there any at all?
uh, Not quite yet. Yeah, not quite
No,
yet. I mean, I woke
no.
up,
Yeah, but
but you're
is this bad experience more man-made, or is it all part of that experience? Because what I'm saying is that do you feel like you're a guinea pig that's making you feel miserable, or
the worst of all this is definitely man-made. Definitely.
yeah,
The worst
yeah,
of all of it is human
yeah,
beings. I can promise you that. I'd rather sit under that thing and get hit again than deal with another, oh my God, another idiot. But
yeah, yeah.
no, I woke up, I was covered in vomit, I was covered in blood. I got in the shower fully clothed and just turned the hot water on and, a little bit of cold. And I just laid there until the hot water ran out. I got out, changed my clothes, put on some dry ones, and I went to the fridge, grabbed some cranberry juice. And I didn't think I was thirsty. I just wanted to sip, a little cranberry juice. If I was thirsty, I'd guzzle some water or something, right? Because cranberry juice is tart and, it's not a guzzling type of thing. The moment that thing hit my lips, oh my God, I was spilling it all over my shirt. I couldn't get enough into my system. I had no idea I was that dehydrated, but my skin looked like a sunburn, but it hung around a lot longer. But I started to feel that rumbling sensation on the top of my head again.
I know
And
that
my
rumbling
God,
sensation. Hey,
yeah,
it
I
sent me
dropped,
bald, mate. It sent me bald. That rumbling
it'll do it.
sensation, because what actually happened to
Yeah.
me. I mean, I'm sorry for butting in here. I mean,
No,
I'm relating
I had, yeah, I had
from the
chunks
back
of hair coming out of my head.
from the top of my head going down to the back. I looked like it went pure bloody white, like I was a skunk.
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
now there I am now, mate. I'm wearing a
Yeah.
hat there,
Well,
guys. Yeah. I should take out my teeth
that's,
too.
yeah. Well, that's another sign. That's another sign of direct effects of electromagnetic field activity. Another sign of it. I was combing my hair and I had chunks and chunks of hair coming out,
Crackling.
and it
Was
was
it
just
crackling as you're coming, like snapping, like you can
mortifying.
hear it crackle? It was crackling
Oh yeah,
when I.
like you have
Oh,
the like when you pull your clothes out of the dryer type
yeah,
of thing.
yep, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the sound it makes, and you got bloody hair in your bloody car. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
So, but my
Yeah.
hair did grow
Well,
back. My hair did grow back after falling out, but for about
mhm,
I would say about 10 years, I had this
yeah.
perfectly white shape like that. People saying, "Did you put bleach or something in your hair?" Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm not a what they call a carrot top. I'm just got dark brown hair, and people with
Yeah.
dark brown hair do not have a white patch
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
down there.
Luckily for me, I'm a strawberry blonde, so it blended in almost, to where it
Uh,
wasn't too noticeable. But yeah, for you, it must have been bad. My God.
yeah,
But
it was.
yeah, I felt that feeling, and I braced. I grabbed the counter because I thought I was going to get knocked down again because I felt that light, rumbling type of sensation. It's hard to explain, but the moment I relaxed, it dissipated. It kind of went away. Sorry, my glasses are a little uh, tight on the nose. A new pair, but so I made it to the couch, and then I felt it again. And it was almost like feeling a contraction in the center of my mind, and an involuntary contraction, which there's no muscles or nerve endings, so I shouldn't be feeling that sensation
Mm.
whatsoever. And so I braced for another impact. And then I thought, wait a minute, as soon as I relax, it goes away. So I stood up and I thought about it for a second, and I just kind of accessed that, and boom, I did something. And I started pacing back and forth and looking at my hands. I'm like, no, 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 that did not just happen. That did not happen. And I stopped again, concentrated, and it happened again. So I was freaked out. So I'm thinking, okay, I got to go to the emergency room. I've got a tumor. Something's really wrong here. And then I started thinking about, I'm a single dad with 4 kids. If I tell an emergency room doctor what happened to me last night, they're going to lock me up, and those kids are going to be raised by the state. So I spent the day. The kids set up, Facebook on my phone. I never used it before, but I was speeding through Facebook looking for anyone I could find, a scientist or someone that I could talk to off the books. And I ran into a guy from MUFON. His name was Barry Gaunt, from state director of Kentucky. So I started talking to him, and I told him what I saw, and he said, "Whoa, whoa, 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 back up, back up. What did it look like?" Because to me, a flying saucer was a 1950s film on a little saucer on a fishing string going, "Ooh," that stupid stuff. So I had no idea that this thing was a UFO. I had no idea. I didn't know what it was. I just knew it tried to kill me, which was not true, but
Mm.
that's my perspective at the time. And I didn't know, but we ended up on the phone for about 4 hours that evening, and I didn't know it yet, but he was actually building a case. He was, putting case file and doing a questionnaire and all that stuff. But he literally stayed on the phone for 4 hours. I was a wreck. I was a complete wreck. I mean, my whole worldview was just destroyed in 2 days. And here's this guy. He's just helping me out, but we spent 4 hours on the phone. He got a hold of Arkansas MUFON, and this poor lady, we're having high strangeness, TV turning on and off by itself, light bulbs busting, my stereo unplugged, and it's got this frequency coming out of it, and you can't turn it off.
Oh, so you had a bit of a
And that's
poltergeist there, mate.
well, no, that's what yeah,
Sounds
well,
like,
that's
doesn't
what it,
it? Yeah.
well, that's what it seems like. But
Yeah, I hear, mate.
it's common. It's called high strangeness, and your
Yes,
electronics are
yes.
going to go nuts. But
I
whatever
hear, mate.
energy these things are using kind of leaks over into your electronics. It leaks into your body. It gets a hold of anything that's conducive. But she uh, she came over with a list of things to check for and all that stuff. And the minute she got there, there was plenty of witnesses. I think 19 witnesses came forward to her, because everybody in the neighborhood saw this thing, at least once. And
Something that
the
size,
people
mate.
that
I mean,
you can't you can't miss it. I mean, there were people on the mountain range behind me, Mount Riante, that saw it. They drove down. They added to the report. There was quite a few people. Dan hadn't seen it yet. Christy hadn't seen it yet, and I didn't know this, but my best friend Tony, he's already seen this thing. He just didn't talk to anybody about it. But we did the report, and she put up a tripod, tried to interview me. Well, the damn battery drained immediately. So she goes out to her trunk and grabs 3 more cameras, and all 3 of those drained immediately. She's like, "What is going on here?" She's getting nervous. Her hands are shaking, and she's been doing this 30 years.
yeah.
30 years and move on.
They would have been
You know,
loaded. They would
um,
have been
so
fully charged, mate.
yeah, so she fully charged before she left. She got ready, the night before. So my daughter lent her a camera, and that camera actually works. So we're able to do interviews with people in the neighborhood and me. And my investigator loves this part, and it's the only time he's ever been mad at me. But he looks back at this particular part of it, and he laughs. But on the paperwork, she said, "Okay, you're going to show me this thing with your head." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, you're going to feel a vibration, and you're going to hear a sound." And she walks past the mirror, rolls her eyes, and I saw her roll her eyes in the mirror, and I got
Mm.
pissed off. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to blast this girl with everything that I have. She is going to feel this phenomenon. There's no way I can let her leave without knowing, because she just rolled her eyes in the mirror. So she comes up, I hand her a stethoscope. She sits in the chair in front of me, and I put my forehead on her forehead, and I blasted. I didn't know back then. I'm really not supposed to really say, but I hit her with about 3,000 hertz, looking back, knowing what I know. And she came out of the chair, and I grabbed her. I caught her. It's on film. And it messed her up pretty good. While this was going on, her dad was walking into Walmart. A vehicle sped up to 35 miles an hour and plowed him. Did not hit the brakes. This man flew 15 to 20 feet, and they say he bounced twice in the Walmart parking lot. She got the call and, took off. She says, I got to go. My dad's hurt. Well, her brother's in special forces. And when her brother shows up to the hospital room, there were spooks in there. And I talked to her brother. I said, what do you mean spooks? And he said, the moment they looked at me, they turned around, they didn't say a word, and they walked straight out. And they were really nice suits, dressed up. But he said, Eric, I know a spook, and those were spooks. So I don't know what that was about. Could have been related to, something else. I don't know. But it continued, from there. But this object would come back. Dan finally noticed it. Black Hawk helicopter started showing up, and it would hit us with the spotlight, and then look up and down the road. The object would take off immediately, and the helicopter would raise up and go over the trees, where it came before. So that was Christy's first time. She goes, oh my God, the helicopter, and that thing is real. I heard people talking about it. So it really freaked her out. But one night, Christy was having trouble with her husband and just having a bad day, and wanted to talk to me. Everyone came to me in the neighborhood, for advice and stuff like that. It was, just sat in the car and talked for a while. And I got that feeling, like something was above, and it was really weak at a time. It much stronger now. But over time, when it's about to happen, when they're about to show up. And I looked over at Christy, and she said, oh my God, why is the car shaking? And I said, yeah, you feel that. And it was about 9:30 at night. We both blinked, one blink, and it was 5:30 in the morning. That was it. No recollection of anything whatsoever. So I go inside, and I get the kids up for school. And my son said, Dad, where were you last night? I said, well, I was out in the car talking to Christy. He said, no, you weren't. He said, I forgot to do my homework, and it was 9:30. It was bedtime, and I forgot my backpack in the back seat of the car. He said, before I went to bed, I got my backpack out of the back seat so I can do my homework in the morning. He said, you weren't in the car, Dad. So we weren't even in there. Another occasion of missing time is where her and I were standing in front of my apartment, having a cigarette, just talking. We both blinked again, and we ended up behind the apartment, all the way in the back in the tree line. And the moment I realized we were standing back there, I turned and looked at her, and she gave me this big left hook, just pop. That was her reaction, to, the situation. And she takes off running. This is a big woman, so I'm feeling the pop to the face.
I said that woman that was said bullshit in the documentary.
No, she's in there, but I think you're thinking about Melinda Leslie.
Oh,
and
okay. Sorry,
but Christy is in the documentary, and I mean, she suffers from it, man. I mean, the last time I saw her, she was pretty much drinking all night long and working a 3 to 11 shift in the evening as a CNA. So, taking care of the elderly, but she is, just like all of us, really highly affected.
I noticed that you're doing a lot of counseling yourself for a lot of abductees as well.
Yeah, more than I'd like to admit.
No, I admire you for doing that, because a lot of people find it very difficult. Since I came to the realizations what actually happened to me. I mean, I didn't really tell many people. I was too embarrassed to talk about it for some reason.
Well, yeah,
Well,
I mean,
even my wife, I don't even talk to my wife about it all that much. I mean,
yeah.
They listen to me. They're staunch Catholics and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And to them, it's against their kind of beliefs. But They understand. They know
It's
where
in
I'm
their
at.
Bible. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's in their
well,
Bible, but I lived in a small town, Mr. B. So it's
mm,
30,000. Everybody kind of knows everybody. If you don't recognize someone, you ask them
yeah,
where they went to school with, and you find out right away who their family is and all that. So
mm,
everybody kind of knows everybody in a roundabout way. So with this activity going on, people in town were talking about it. People in town were seeing this thing come down, from a
mm,
distance. So they would drive out. Other people would hear about it, and they would park rows of cars up and down the street just to see this
mm,
object come down and do what it
mm,
does, and then it'll leave. So it wasn't that, I could hide it. I couldn't hide it. I couldn't hide it at all.
mm,
There were F-18s, there were helicopters. People all around town were talking about it. My whole neighborhood seen these things. They were packing up and
mm.
moving. Matter of fact, I was the last person to move off my street. 20 apartments and 3 trailers, all empty but me and the kids. That's what was left in that neighborhood. So,
Mhm.
um, I couldn't hide it. I got kicked out of my church, not because I didn't mention anything in church. It was just because everyone else was talking about what was going on with me. And since I
Right.
live in Arkansas, everybody said, well, he's calling the devil down from the sky, so, you know, everybody in my town knew me, they loved me,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden nobody would talk to me. They would give me snares and bad looks. Oh,
Yeah.
you're the devil. So I didn't know the devil came from the sky, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was a real hard time. I mean, I turned to my preacher. I said,
Maybe the angels did, my friend. Maybe the
hmm,
angels did. But at the same time,
maybe so.
the fallen angels descended to earth. Remember that.
Right.
If you want to go scriptures,
Oh,
they
I know.
descended to earth.
I
So
know.
therefore, do we live in hell? That's I mean, we got war, plague,
Yeah.
pestilence, you name it. We've got it all here.
Well, I mean, that's the first thing that I did. I mean, my IQ was going from 110 to 150 very rapidly. I used to talk really slow. I had a slow Southern accent, talk like this. But it went rapidly. And the first thing I wanted to look at was religion, and I turned to find out it was around 4,200 man-made religions throughout history. We're aware of about 6 of them growing up, but
Oh, don't
I mean,
worry,
it
yours
goes
is
all the
the
way
right
back.
one, though.
Yeah, I wish I knew.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, I agree with
I
them.
wish I
And
knew.
I mean, and it's strange that I mean, within the Judaism Christian society, right? I mean,
Mhm.
there are so many denominations where they're like cults that they believe in the same thing, but they don't integrate with each other. I mean, they've got their own names. I mean, they're either Seven Day
Yeah.
Adventist or Jehovah's Witness, Catholic or Church of England or Protestant or an evangelist or whatever. But they all say they believe in the same thing, but no,
Mhm.
they can knock on your door and you can say, "Yes, I'm a Christian." Fine, that's not good enough. You still got to come to our church. And it's like they're segregating themselves, and this is how much of a cult it is within itself. And they're forgetting the one
Right, yeah.
thing: if they believe in God, if they believe in God, really believe in God, they will take note of the first commandment. First, I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have strange gods before me. And what's the first thing Judaism and Christians do? They pronounce, they make Jesus three gods in one, called a
Yeah.
Trinity. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a contradiction to itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Anyway,
never
yeah,
understood
we'll,
that. I
we'll, we'll
mean,
get we'll get off that. We'll get off the religion bit, but I hear where you're
yeah.
coming from. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I told my preacher, I said, "Look, kick me out of church. That's fine, but do not do this to my children. They're children.
Mm,
They're going through a really hard time right now. They're my kids. They need you guys."
mm.
It was disgusting.
And they're
And
not
me and the
supposed to
kids had
judge.
to
And
leave
they're
the
not
church.
supposed to judge you either, my friend. They're not supposed to judge
No.
you. That's God's job.
Yeah. Yeah, it
That's
was it
right.
was disgusting.
Yeah.
It was disgusting. I couldn't believe the stern look in his eye. I'll never forget the stern look in his eye. Like, you have to leave. You're
Mm,
causing problems here. I was the quiet guy in the back pew. I didn't say anything. It was just everyone in town was talking about what was going on. But a lot did go on throughout the year. you know, from from 2013 all the way into well into 2014, it was a constant thing. These things would always show up. One day, my neighbor Debbie. Everybody's got a cat lady in their neighborhood. You know, you're in Australia. You're 23 hours into the future from me. By the way, folks, I'm talking to a guy from the future. 23 hours into the future. I keep asking him if I won the lottery, but my neighbor Debbie, she calls me from work, and she said, "Eric, there's a man stalking you and your children." And I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Well, let me tell you, first of all, she worked at a hotel. So she, changes the sheets and the soaps and all that stuff, cleans the room. And she calls me frantically, tells me that. My first thought is, I have two daughters. There's a creeper following the kids. She said, "Eric, there's pictures of you and the kids at Walmart, the other grocery store. There's pictures of you and the kids in the pool. Everywhere you go, he's got pictures of you right all over the bed." So I'm thinking this guy's a creep. I said, "Debbie, hang up the phone, go to the office and get that man's name right now and call me back right now. These are my kids." So she hangs up, goes to the office, and she said, "His name is Lieutenant Colonel Dallas C. Wood." And I said, "Okay." So I sat down for a few minutes. I'm thinking, okay, I've got a loaded 38. If he comes around my house, that's it. I'll pop him. You don't mess with a man's daughters. So Bear calls my investigator, and I said, "Yeah, I'm dealing with this creep." And he said, "Well, what's going on?" I was like, "Well, his name's Lieutenant Colonel Dallas C. Wood. He's at the hotel right down the street, and he's been taking pictures of me and the kids. I'm about to call the damn cops. There's a ledger on the nightstand talking about everything that we do. He's stalking the hell out of us." He said, "Don't call the cops yet. Let me check this guy out." Turns out he has a long dossier with the DOD. He wasn't down there creeping on my children. He was down there because he pulled a domestic intelligence report on me and my family, and he was legally stalking us, legally. So he went ahead and took 5 different faces off the internet and showed them to Debbie. And he said, "Debbie, which one?" And she picked out affirmatively right off the bat. She goes, "That's the guy, because he's an asshole and I've met him." And it was the Dallas C. Wood that worked for the United States Pentagon, Department of Foreign Relation and Foreign Technologies. Okay. So we've got this guy's name. That was a lead. Now well, yeah, because there's 77 years of ufology, and there's no names being dug up of these people. There's none. I mean, what? This is my first year into this, and we catch this guy. It was a happenstance, that Debbie just happened to work down the street. And of course, he wants the closest hotel to my location, and he's involved with these Black Hawks and F-18s and all this stuff that's going on. So by the time my daughter, she was accepted to college up in Maine. And I saw that as an opportunity. I said, "Sweetheart, I'll sell 10 acres of my land. I'll get the cash, and I'll drive you to Maine, and I'll keep an apartment up there to make sure you're okay for maybe your first semester of school," because we were the last person to live on that street. So I left my furniture, Mr. B. I left my furniture. I packed that trunk. I packed the back seat, slid the, TV in the back, and we were gone. 6 o'clock in the morning, gone. And I'm smiling. I'm thinking it's over. I can start a new life up in Maine. I hear it's beautiful during the summer. And so we get there September 1st, 2014. And I rented a top apartment of this big old building, and it used to be a giant Victorian house, but they chopped it into little apartments. So we got this apartment, and every floor has a back deck, and that's where you smoke. You're not allowed to smoke in the building, once again. And I didn't smoke around the kids anyway, unless we're outside. So I go outside and I meet the new neighbors from across the hall. And we're having cigarettes and they're popping beers. "Nice to meet you." Very nice people. And I get this feeling, and I went, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And I turned around, and there's a park across the street. There were 2 blue ones hovering over the park, one cocked sideways, and the other one just stayed hovering. And here comes this orange one up over the trees and eye level, maybe 60 feet up, just eye level, hovering over the street. So maybe 20 feet away from our bodies, maybe 20 feet away at most, and it just hovered there. I can't even tell you how my heart sunk when I saw this thing in front of me. I just moved 2,000 miles away. I was going to start my life over, and then it was done, and here this thing is right here in my face. So my neighbors are kicking each other over, kicking chairs out of the way, pushing and trying to get into the back door. Cause this thing is, if you're not used to it, it'll freak you out, especially if it's up close, and, me and the kids had no reaction except, oh my God, we didn't get
Here we
away
go
from it.
again. Yeah, here we go again.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I got a hold of, Audrey Hewins. I don't normally talk about, her name. There's been a lot. But she had a thing called Starborn Support up in Maine, and I started helping her with their support group, and her plate was always full. So, and it was great because there was, online support, and there was also in person. We'd have 15, 20 people, and I had already been working with a lot of experiencers all over the world already. So it was great to be within good company, at least, helping these people. Um, and she asked me, she said, how about you speak at my conference? It's called Experiencers Speak. I think, yeah, Experiencers Speak. And she said, you can talk about, some things. And I said, well, I can't really speak in front of a class at school, much less, a whole crowd of people, and, she said, well, just think about it. And that night I got a text on my phone. It said, if you speak, you will get sick and you will die. And I'm thinking somebody's screwing with me, so anything weird like that, I just send to my investigator and he looks into it. But anyway, I decided to speak, and I got up there and I was talking about Lieutenant Colonel Dallas C. Wood. I also found out about some Pentagon projects that he had been, once you get his name, you can pull his dossier and find out who he's involved with and pull their dossier and kind of poke around at the Pentagon, find out what's going on, OSAP and ATIP and phenomenology desk and, all these little compartmentalized places within the DOD. And by the time I got off stage, like most of ufology just come rushing to me. They're like, you're new at this. You don't know what you're doing. It's not the Pentagon. It's Area 51. And I said, no, no, it's not. I know what I'm talking about, or I wouldn't have gotten on stage and talk to these nice people. They paid to get in here. They don't want to hear lies,
Mm.
So once they figured out who I was and how big this case was, they were all kissing my butt after that. It was like, I can write a book about you, and I could do this with you, and hey, I want to fly you out to Florida, and just you can see the dollar signs in their eyes, that I was a new commodity for them.
Mm.
And I didn't like the way that felt, so I went home that night, and I started throwing up. I was getting bad sick. I was throwing up black stuff. And this guy kept trying to get a hold of me, and I can't remember his name, but he claimed to be a super soldier or something like that. His name was Max something. But later on, I found out that he died, and he was throwing up a lot of black stuff. I never knew what he wanted to talk to me about, but I was throwing up black stuff. I was losing 2-3 pounds a day. I was wasting away fast. Doctors couldn't find anything wrong with me. They said my heart palpitations was probably just panic attacks. And I said, well, I know what a panic attack is. I'm not having a panic attack. I can meditate right now, and my heart's banging out of my chest. What's wrong with me?
Do you have a slow pulse rate or high pulse rate? Which one do you have? Do you have a high or low?
I'm AB negative, so I have a natural slow pulse rate.
I have a pretty low pulse rate, and it's been like that since my experience. Actually, I mean, it's below average. I mean, it's about 49 to 50 pulse a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange how it
Yeah,
affects your body.
it's very low. Well, a lot of people with Rh negative factor have a lower pulse rate, lower body temperature. Mine stays around 96.8 instead of 98.6. So if I do have a bad fever, it's around 98, 99. That's a really
Right.
bad fever for me.
Right.
But so, gosh, finally, my daughter, I was suffering badly. I mean, badly. It was days and days and days in, and I was looking pretty bad. And doctors couldn't help me. And my daughter, she was studying to be a microbiologist. She said, "Dad, you need to go see a mycologist." So I think it was like $800 for them to draw blood and look at it, and my insurance didn't cover it, so I had to pay up, up front. And I got a call, and they said I have white and pink mold mycotoxins coursing through my veins. And I said, well, how did I get that in my system? Was it something I ate or drank? And they said, well, it's incredibly rare, especially to have both because they don't get along with each other. So when they're in the same area, they throw spores at each other like war, and it kills them off. The survivor takes over the area, just like in wartime with when humans do it. And somehow I got it into my system, and I went to go see a cardiologist because I already had an appointment, and they found a very large pulmonary embolism, right next to my heart and lungs. And they said, well, if this breaks off during a sneeze or a cough, you will die. You will die. So I had to do emergency, I don't know, I can't remember what it was called, but they vibrate your chest where it hurts real bad. And you can feel it break apart because your heart will jump out of your chest when it kind
Mm.
of big chunks go through it. And you think any minute now my heart's going to just pop, because once the valve is clogged, it pumps one more time, your heart explodes. It literally does. So
Mm.
I'm I'm learning all this for the first time, but it was successful. They got that. So it's postulated that somehow I breathed this substance in. It caused a pulmonary embolism, and then it got into my bloodstream. So it's like a monsters inside me type of thing.
Mm.
Um, but Audrey called me and she said, Eric, I want you to, because there is no treatment. You will die from it. 5% chance to live. So Audrey calls me. She said, Dad, um, one second. Oh man.
It's all
Sorry.
right. Hey, do you need to have a break? Do you need a break? Because I can put some
Yeah,
music
let's
on.
let's
And
yeah, let's hit a pee break real fast.
okay, I'll just put some music on. We'll turn off the cameras and they can listen. We'll be back in
All
five
right.
minutes, guys. Okay.
5 minutes, buddy. Thanks.
And here we are again. Anyway, Eric should be back in a moment. So this is very informative. I'd like to encourage anybody that's had any kind of experience or to come forward, let me know. Look, come on the show, talk about it, because the more people talk about it, better society accepts everything, because it's quite common, more common than what you think, actually. And today I was listening to the Doc Skinner show. G'day, Doc. I'm sure you either gone back to bed or whatever. But anyway, they were actually talking about frequencies today. When it's strange, only a few weeks ago, I was actually talking about frequencies myself, how everything resonates. And, it's Doc had some really good guests on today, and it's absolutely fabulous. And we should be trying to communicate with our extraterrestrial friends by putting our worries and putting our negatives aside and start kind of look, I'm here. You want to talk to me? Talk to me. Let's be friends. It's what they call, as the words they said, to be humble. And because we are a vicious race, and it's about time we start growing up, because we're like, if your children at home start fighting, you pull them apart and you wave the finger and say, now stop this, got to be nice to each other. And here we are as parents trying to discipline our children to be good citizens or human beings, but yet the governments of the world, like Russia and not just Russia, USA, Australia, everybody, they just want to throw rocks at each other, well, let's call it hypersonic missiles with multiple warheads. Let's destroy each other quicker and faster and more efficiently. Imagine being an alien race, just want to, an alien race, we say, why don't they land on the White House lawn? Well, let's put it this way, mate. I wouldn't drive through the Bronx at night in a car, right? I'll drive it fast with the windows wide. And I imagine these aliens and everything. They come through, and they just think, God, look, these barbarians, they got the nuclear bombs and they got pointing at each other. Insanity. We're dangerous. We are dangerous, and we've got to change our attitudes. We've got to change our attitudes to the point where we become passive, more spiritual, more help each other. Become one as a family. And we've got no other planet but this one. This is our home. We are all of the same species, maybe different color skins, but we're the same species. Anyway, let's get back to Eric, and you're welcome back to you there, Eric.
Hey. Sorry about the abrupt. I've got live right in my window, but people don't care.
well, I had to do what they call a deaf and dumb sign. That's a pit stop. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So you want me to just pick up where I left off?
Yes, go for it, Eric. I'm really enjoying this.
We'd be on air all day, if I didn't skip through all this stuff. But one day I'll put it all down on paper. But I did. I moved in with Audrey, literally to die, and they gave me a 5% chance to live. I was looking pretty rough. Everybody I see from Maine nowadays, they look at me and they say, "Man, Eric, you look so great." But I almost bit the big one. But Audrey and Travis fell in love at a conference in Laughlin, Nevada, and they couldn't stay away from each other.
Travis Walton, aren't we? Travis Walton, yeah.
Yes. Travis Walton. They did a movie about him called Fire in the Sky.
Yes,
I think it was 1993.
I think he was terribly disappointed about that, I believe.
Oh yeah, the first time I saw the film was sitting next to him, and he picked out for me what actually happened and what was fantasy and all that stuff. I've been given an
Hollywood had to
opportunity to
put in
screw
there,
my
didn't
life
they?
up.
Hollywood had to put
Yeah,
it.
I've
I heard that he's actually they're thinking about doing another movie, but the true story.
yeah,
I
yeah.
heard the
I
rumors.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I hope it goes well if he does agree to it. But we'll see. We'll see. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he stayed with us for about 8 months, and there were some, I mean, great conversations. Yeah, man, I could spend all day just talking about that 8 months that he was with us. Of course, he would leave, do a conference, and come back, and we were three peas in a pod. One funny story, I'll piss him off real fast, because Audrey was like one of my guy friends. You know, we would arm wrestle and do Taco Tuesday and drink a bottle of tequila and just have a great time. You know, so
Who gets the
you know,
worm
living
though?
together.
Who gets the worm though? The
Yeah.
worm.
Well, we'd have to arm wrestle for that, you know, as well. But yeah, she's a tough Maine girl, you know. She's
Yeah.
tough. But there was one day she was cooking my favorite meal and Travis's favorite meal, which is simple: steak, potato, and a salad. And I love it. I could eat it every single day. And Travis will put down a steak the size, I mean, just huge steak. Just put it down. I can't believe how much protein. And I consume a lot of protein, but this man, my God. But she was walking. I was in a chair. He was on the couch. We were watching Fox News or something like that. I think it had to have been Fox News if it was Travis in the room. But she walks right past me with this beautiful steak and baked potato. And I looked at her and I said, dude, bros before hoes. And she turns around without even thinking. Without even thinking, she turns directly around and puts the steak in my lap. And Travis turns redder than his hair. And he said, Eric, what does that even mean? He probably to this day still doesn't know what bros before hoes mean, but you know, he was the hoe, you know, and I was the bro. So
Well, if you send him this show, he's going to find out now. Okay.
oh no, I'll get a call.
Yeah.
I'll get a call. I'll get a call. I guarantee you, I'll get a call. It's just a matter of time before he comes across this and
Well,
says, "Eric, I can't believe you said that."
my friend Doc Skinner, he came in and say hello. He sent me a message saying, "I'm here," because he has his own.
Yeah,
He's the Doc Force. I don't know if you know Doc Force at all. Anyway,
yeah.
so,
Doc Skinner. Yeah, I follow him quite a bit. I do enjoy him. I
yeah.
never actually talked to the man, but maybe one day I'll get a chance to meet him.
Hey, top fella,
But I
mate.
haven't.
He's top
Yeah,
fella. But I think he knows.
that's what I hear.
I think he knows Travis Walton's son. Apparently,
Right. Which one?
I don't know. I don't know which one I'm in.
I don't know.
I'm in a totally different land, my friend. Sometimes I'm in a different world.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got a big family. Yeah, a lot of people don't know he's got a big family. You know, but
it's all that protein.
His house
It's all that bloody protein he's eating.
Yeah, exactly, and he's absorbing constant information.
He's the hoe.
He's the hoe, you know. But yeah, I mean, you can tell in his house he's just as bad as you and I are. His house is full of books, and he's always reading something, taking in the information. You know, even at his age, you know, he's still just drawing it in. But yeah, I mean, we're three peas in a pod. The only time me and Travis had it out, and rightfully so, you know, roommates have their section of the fridge, and you know, I had my bacon in my section of the fridge. Knowing Travis, you can't go to work and leave bacon or steak anywhere in the fridge. It's going to get eaten. I mean, he can't help it. It's just, you know, it's built inside of him. The man's hungry.
Well, Doc Skinner, I tell you, if he's watching this now, mate, he's gonna be on that bloody blower saying, "Hey, what's this here about you eating bacon?"
Yeah. Call him up. Tell him I'm still mad.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, no, I jumped Travis for. I'm like, Travis, come on. I work hard every day. You know, I get up in the morning. I want to eat my bacon. What the hell, you know? And I won't forget it. It was Halloween morning, 2014, and I left for work. I was mad at him. I said, fine, I'll get bacon when I get off work, and I'll just buy a mini fridge. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I can't just keep losing weight, man. I'm sick. So I came home that night, and there's this big black robe draped over my bed, and I'm exhausted. I'm like, what is this? And you know what? You're not going to believe this, but I do have pictures on Facebook. You can go to my Facebook page and look at this. Travis had rented costumes for Halloween for steampunk. And I've never watched the movie or whatever this genre is, but I do. I have pictures of me, Travis, and Audrey dressed up for
Well, I don't know what
Halloween.
steampunk is. I had no idea, but it must be something
Well,
that's popular in the States.
Yeah, well, he rented me in a costume to apologize for me, and we all went out to Applebee's, and he bought me a bacon wrapped steak. So it just went ahead and made up for it. I got steak and bacon that night, and got to dress like a weirdo. So he made it up to me, but that was the only time we ever had a problem with each other. But it was great. I mean, we're three peas in a pod. Audrey and I were chasing down the Pentagon projects and programs. We were coming up with names all the time. Dates, who held what position. Got a hold of a friend of mine once we came across all the dossier of the aviary group, so he can put it up on Google for us. So it's not just the names, like Dr. Christopher Green. He's in the CIA.
I think you missed out on something, my friend. You missed out something.
Oh, did I?
Yeah. Audrey's sitting in the lounge room in the middle of the bloody night because she couldn't get to sleep.
Oh man, there's no, like I said,
for stereo?
Yeah, we're skipping through 10 years of my life, So yeah, there was a lot. I mean, that poor girl. Here I am on one side of the house, PTSD, screaming.
I had to be, because I thought it was funny when you first told me some time ago.
Yeah, and here's Travis on the other side of the house screaming in his sleep. And of course, she's an abductee too. So she's in the middle of the house where the living room is with a bottle of Jack going, screw these guys. I'm getting a friggin' hotel room. You're just, we both get up in the morning looking at her like, hey, where's breakfast? And her hair's standing up. She's drunk looking at us. It's like, screw you guys. I'm going to bed now that you're up. But I
thought that was funny, but you told me it still is funny.
Yeah, it is. I could just imagine that poor girl. But it was women, women that deal with us. I gotta give them kudos for that. But Audrey is definitely. I can see why Travis fell in love with her. She's one of my best friends out there. Amazing person, heart of gold. And if you ever mess with her, she'll mow you right over. But yeah, 8 months of that. Yeah. But there were some vans poking around, black SUVs, people knocking on the door with clipboards, asking about our AT&T service, and I'd lean over, look at the clipboard, and it's empty. I need 2 forms of identification. They didn't have any identification. There was constant things like that happening. Our heater didn't work, and you live in 39 degrees below zero. You need your heater to work. So we had, we called the local office. They came out. It's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. Mm-hmm. He came out and he said, you guys don't mess with this furnace anymore. He said, if you were able to turn this thing on, it would have blown up the house. And I said, well, nobody messed with it. He said, well, somebody clearly messed with this thing. It was rigged to blow. And so he fixed everything and left. Well, the Audrey's mom said, I'll go ahead and fill the tank up and pay the guy for fixing your thing. Who do I call?
So basically what you're saying is that they're trying to kind of eradicate your problem, the problem, which was you.
Well, I was skeptical at the time, even though I was seeing all this in my face. But you always have to have skepticism, until you absolutely know.
I'm the biggest skeptic out. Believe me,
Yeah,
I am.
Yeah. But I was poisoned. I was dying. Somebody made sure that got into my system. I did the research on it. And that's biological warfare. That's not something that you're going to find in nature, because they don't grow together. They kill each other off. But these strange people would always come up. People would be parked outside. And here's me and Audrey. We're chasing down these aviary people. Like John B. Alexander was Owl. Blue Jay was Dr. Christopher Green or Kit Green. We uncovered about 200 names in the CIA that deal with UFOs. So we were really getting into it. I mean, we knew about OSAP, ATIP, all those guys. We knew, we were mapping everything out. So no wonder we were, going to get into some sort of trouble. But yeah, there's a whole lot I wish I can say. And I mean, I can say anything about my life. I've never signed an NDA or anything like that. But Audrey was found outside of her crushed car. She called her sister, said, "There's a black SUV on my butt. We're in black ice right now, and this guy's not letting up. I'm going to crash." So Debbie jumps in the car, drives out there. Audrey's car was crushed, and she's sitting outside on the road, completely catatonic, doesn't even blink. Her eyes don't respond to any light whatsoever. And by looking at the car, there's no way she could have gotten out. Everything was crushed, and there was no way back into the car. How did she get out of the car? The neurologist said that there's no reason why she should have been catatonic whatsoever. Her neurology looked just fine. So they put her in a mental facility, and not because she's crazy or anything, but because she needed special needs. I mean, she's just sitting up, staring at a wall for 8 months. They needed to, feed her through a tube and take care of her that way. But when she did start talking again, it was rhymes and riddles and didn't make sense. And then my name came up. She said my name. So her family calls me up, and I had flown out to Vegas. I met with Aaron Ryder. We were going to do a show on ancient aliens, and the lady, I think she was the head producer or something like that. It's been a while, but her name was Aaron Ryder. And I decided not to do the show. I had all this information that me and Audrey uncovered, and I was going to deliver it to Ancient Aliens, but they wanted me to just be, part of the show, talking head type, read the material, answer the questions. And I'm like, no, I have material that needs to be on TV right now, and so that didn't work out. They wanted their own information. They didn't want, new outside information. So I spent some time in Vegas, and, I would call Audrey. I had fallen in love. I was spending, time with the lady, and she, would talk to her family. And when my name would come up, they would call me on the phone, say, "Talk to Audrey, get her coming too," and so I would talk to her, and it would be rhymes and riddles, but we spent so much time together, a lot of it started making sense to me. So I was picking up on what she was trying to tell me. But that day, I don't think she has any idea what happened. But during her, they let her go home. She was able to take care of herself, but she can't communicate very well. So every Monday, she would go to Stevens Hospital up in Otisfield, Maine, and they would do a wellness check, just to check her, to make sure she was taking care of herself properly and everything. So on one wellness check, I think this is the first time I really spoke about this on radio. And there's a reason why, that's your friend. And she had fallen ill, and she's like, my God, she's done so much for experiencers, so much for, the whole community. It's been ridiculous. But they brought her into the hospital room for the wellness check. And I know some of this stuff doesn't make sense. It doesn't to me, but it happened. It happened. She's waving at the doctor and the nurses. She knows them all. Every Monday she goes in. They put her in the bed. 2 police officers from 2 counties over came in full riot gear, pulled her out of bed onto the floor, and beat her with a nightstick. Everywhere. Her entire shoulder was so shattered, and I've got pictures. We can put it up next time we're on air, that they had to, from here all the way up, it was all metal, just to hold all the bone fragments together so she can have an arm.
What gave them the right to come and beat the crap out of her while she was in there?
They have no reason. That's not their jurisdiction. They're from 2 counties over.
Yeah, but
and they came all the way.
Were they arrested?
They didn't arrest her. There was no charges to have.
Were they arrested?
I don't know if they were arrested. I know they should have been. But Audrey's father is a lawyer, a big-time lawyer, all over, not just Maine, but all over New England. He traveled a lot. He was a forensics analyst lawyer. which means if a little girl falls off a carriage during a parade and dies, he has to figure out how much her life was going to be worth and submit it to court,
You
by
can't put a
factors of,
price on
did she
life, can
claim?
I mean, let's face it,
You can, but fortunately, unfortunately, there are lawyers like that, and that's
Yeah,
their job. But that's
yeah.
what he
Well,
did. So
they have to
he
make a
went to
case.
the,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, he went to the police station. He went to the hospital and he said, "I'm suing you guys. There's no reason why my daughter should be in this situation. She's already been through enough." And the police department, lawyers, and the hospital lawyer says, "Try it and you'll go broke. We'll make sure you go broke trying to take us to court. We've got a lot more money than you. It's not going to happen. Now we can settle out of court and we'll work on that." And they're still working on that to this day, is settling out of court. But the fact of the matter is, we don't know why these officers did this to Audrey, other than the work that she's been involved in, so, and she'll never be the same. Her PTSD is so bad because of that beating. I mean, they beat her, broken bones everywhere. So, I mean, she was purple everywhere, chipped bones, broken bones. I mean, they aimed to kill. They might as well pulled out a gun. I mean, it would have caused less damage, a lot less damage. So, I find this out while I'm, still back in Las Vegas, and I'm crushed, absolutely crushed. My bedroom is still full of all my stuff at her house. And sometimes she thinks I'm still there and she'll hang a McDonald's bag on my door, make sure I didn't skip lunch. But before I left Maine, I was really sick. I knew I was dying, and I was in my room and I was laying there, and the whole room just kind of lit up in this blue light. And like a 5-year-old kid, I pulled a blanket up over my body and I just stayed there. I knew. I mean, this isn't my first rodeo. I knew what was going on. And I felt this electric tingle up and down my spine over and over again. And then I just blacked out. The next morning I woke up and I reached down to grab my slippers and I pulled just my slippers. That's how thin I was. I felt strength. I went, oh my God, I feel muscle tissue. I feel strength. So I go to the mycologist. I got my blood test. They said, keep doing what you're doing. Whatever it is that you're doing, they said, there's nothing in your bloodstream. Your white blood cell count's coming back. It's looking great. Just keep doing what you're doing. So over time, I started to heal. I got a Gazelle, working out. I'm a thin framed guy, but I can, pack on the muscle, and there's no way I'm going to gain any fat. That's over for me. But
you're blessed, mate. You're blessed. I only have to sniff something and I put on a couple of kilos.
Yeah, well, I'm blessed, but if I get depressed or heartbroken or something like that, I lose weight so fast it could kill me. It literally could kill me. That's how fast I can lose weight. My metabolism is through the roof. Yeah, I mean, my mother, she just passed away. So I'm like, you could tell I'm losing weight again. I just hit the gym 5 o'clock this morning, protein shakes and all that stuff, just so I don't lose. I'm not going to gain anything right now, but just so I won't lose anymore. But yeah, Las Vegas was nuts as always. Man, it kept going. In Las Vegas, I had a MUFON guy knock on my front door. And I didn't recognize him. I said, yes, sir. How can I help you? He said, well, I don't want to sound crazy, but have you ever heard of UFOs? And I said, well, come on in. Do you want a cup of tea? My girlfriend at the time was English. I was like, you want a cup of tea? Come on in. This
What do you want to know about him?
Yeah. It turns out he was an investigator for MUFON. Right. And for several nights, he lived on the other side, up on this hill. I was in the Summerlin area. I was just right across from a place called Red Rock. And a lot of UFOs have been seen out in Red Rock anyway. It's a hot spot. So here I am across the street from Red Rock, and I didn't know what was going on. But here's UFOs dipping down from the sky, hovering over my house, flashing twice, and shooting straight up. And this guy's recording it. So he gets a lot closer and narrows it down to my little block. And he's up on this, it's like a pyramid shaped mountain across the street. And it's got a cave inside of it. A lot of homeless people used to live in there. I would go up there and drop off a bunch of groceries and, that way they can eat and stuff. And sometimes just sit down and have a beer and listen to these guys, and their life, as a homeless person. Man, they're doing better off than we are sometimes. But that was the cave stays cool, so it's not too hot. It's a great place for them to stay. And so this guy gets on top of this mountain over my home, and he's filming them again. They're just going directly over my home, flashing, shooting right up. So the next day he had to. It's like, I'm going to the man's front door. He knocks on my door, asks me if I've ever heard of UFOs, and I'm like, let's get a cup of tea. My girlfriend, she makes great English tea. So he came inside, opened up his laptop, and he's showing me all the footage of this thing coming, around my rooftop in my home and stuff like that. So a lot of other people in Las Vegas, and there was a lot of stuff in Maine I had to skip over too, but I was on Channel 5 News. I was on the Portland radio stations, 4 of them, about 6 o'clock in the morning, because a guy came outside. Audrey and Travis were in Laughlin, and I was asleep, and there were 5 objects hovering over my bedroom. And a guy came out to have a cigarette, and he starts filming it. And with it, he calls Channel 5 News and sends them the footage. This is what's going on right now. So I get up in the morning, and I'm in my boxers, my hair sticking up, and somebody's banging on the door. I'm like, Jesus, Audrey, she must have forgot her keys or something. So I open the door thinking it's Audrey, and there's a bunch of microphones just shoving right in the door. I'm trying to close it back. Oh my God, what did I do? And they're just trying to ask me questions. So I finally got the door shut. I sat on the couch, and I'm drinking some orange juice, and I'm thinking, oh my God, how am I going to deal with this? So I got dressed and did some interviews there and all that stuff. But I got invited to the radio stations and did all that. I figured, why not? More publicity for people that don't have a voice. But Vegas, it was the same way. The objects would show up. Now on this mountain across the street in Vegas, people started to notice the objects every night. So there was a bunch of hippies that would climb the top of the mountain, or they would get their SUVs and they would have their headlamps on and everything like that. And they would just, wave at it and everything. And I'd wave back at them, as the objects were, hovering ahead. And it turned into, I don't know, I could have started a cult like right then and there. They were really fascinated with what was going on. Not like Arkansas, they would have been throwing rocks at me. But in Vegas, they were really open-minded and they loved it.
Just to
I
change
think
the
there was a guy.
subject just to change the subject for just a brief moment there.
Sure.
What's your catch on the ufology scene today? What are you finding? What are you finding anything disappointing at all? Without mentioning any names or any particular people, do you find it's gone astray at all? Well, I'll give you my personal opinion. Now, I'm new to this game, and the podcasting and that. So okay, but for some years now, I've been an outsider looking in, and I started getting very much involved. As the more I learnt, the more I could relate. But now I just seem to be. We got the fat cats at the top. I won't mention names. We've got fat cats at the top of the industry, and
I've met them all. Yeah,
and they're trying to take over everything. And most of them work for corporations. And then you got people that come along talking about threats. You know what I mean? UFO threats and all that stuff. Now, these people have not been in the industry for all that long at all. But yet, there's so many people broadcasting, having podcast shows and everything. They've been doing it for the last 15, 20 years. Just about. Close to it. Right?
I've met them all. Yeah, I've met them all.
And these hardworking people are trying to kind of get down to it. They're not assuming they know anything. I mean, I'm a skeptic personally. I know my truths, right?
Well,
I know
most people are scared to say this. Most people are scared to say this, but I'll say it the way I've seen it because I was in the circle, and I can definitely, and this comes from the horse's mouth, not from mine. But it's a high competition entertainment business. First and foremost, you've got to put dinner on the table.
And people, do they really think people are that stupid? Do they really think they've got brains like peanuts?
Well, obviously, because people pay a lot of money for the garbage, the entertainment stuff, and
Yeah.
some of these people actually think that some of this stuff is real, and the real people are don't really talk, don't really. I don't involve myself with ufology hardly at all. I mean, I get
Yeah.
along with most people, but I
Well,
mean, it's not.
what I found over the last, say, 5 years, there's been a new wave, and the money's come from somewhere to really boost these people way up very fast. My
Yes,
personal opinion is disinformation. They're bringing it.
yes,
Let's hit this. Let's hit the system with so much misinformation. Let's give them fairy
yeah,
tales. They'll believe
yeah,
anything. I mean, look.
yeah,
Remember the old TV
blue,
series SG-1, right?
yeah,
Stargate, right? And now
yeah.
everybody's
I mean, it's
talking about now everybody believes in the Stargate. But then they
yeah,
say,
yeah.
oh, but it's like the government kind of soft disclosure. Now they're playing games with it all. Soft disclosure. They're putting it
Oh
into
yeah,
Hollywood to kind of condition us to believe. We're actually,
yeah.
I
Well, there's
honestly believe we're being sidetracked into a totally different direction away from the truth. But
That's
I
absolutely
feel
true. There,
I feel a lot of podcasters like myself, right, are now starting to see this. They're starting to
mm,
see it because why?
there is.
We're not calling names, but these fat cats at the top, they're dominating the industry and saying everybody's wrong, they're right. And I remember on the Doc
Yeah,
Skinner show today, they actually turned around and said, if anybody assumes they know, they're liars because nobody knows.
yeah,
It's everything is
yeah.
just speculation. If you've never
Oh,
been in,
come on, Mr. B.
hey, to me,
Blue space
right? To
chickens.
me,
Blue space
your
chickens.
truths,
Yeah,
your truths, my truths are my truths. We can relate because hey, we can relate. I mean, you can't get
yeah.
away
Well,
from it.
I'll tell you.
We understand, right?
I'll tell you
But
what. If I was on Mars for 20 years hanging out with blue space chickens, I'd be pretty quiet when I got home. I'd be quiet. I mean, I wouldn't say anything. You
yeah,
know.
but would you want to come home if you want to? Would you want to come home if you could stay young forever?
I just
I
can't.
mean, yeah,
I
well,
can't.
yeah.
First it pisses you off, and then all you can do is laugh about that afterwards. I
You
mean,
know what I
it's you
find
don't.
funny? Yeah, what I find funny about it, if they're supposed to have cure for this and cure for that, so basically what they're actually saying is the government's committing genocide because they're letting all these people die of illnesses. That's
Yeah.
how I look at it.
Well.
I mean, I'm calling it how I see it. But let's get real. There's one particular gentleman, I won't mention names, he seems to be a very nice guy, complained about certain people stole a few chapters from his book, right?
Yeah.
And calling it his own work. Now, I
Sounds about
can't
right.
say names, but apparently this particular person always talks about whistleblowers this, whistleblowers this. Now, this person actually turned around and said, well, look, I know for a fact that if there were so many whistleblowers, right, now we're talking about there's a leak within the government security system, right? It's a breach of
Hmm.
security. The government would turn around and put a court order on that guy saying, give us the name of the person that's giving you all this information. Because if you don't, this court order says you're a breach of court, you go to jail.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's one thing to breach orders of national security. You go straight to prison. You don't even go to court. If
Thank
you
you very much.
violate your NDA, you go. But now, if you're working for private industry and you start blowing like that, you're dead. Sorry, I know the game. You're dead.
Exactly right.
You better have you better have a dead man's trigger and a good one, a really good
Exactly.
one.
Yeah. Don't they call that it's a wet, somebody's going to get wet, meaning blood, or
Yeah,
something to that
yeah,
effect. But the thing is, it's all these whistleblowers that are coming out, and then and the paradigm shift, and whistleblowers and the paradigm shift. I mean, man, look,
nah,
I believe we are heading towards maybe a fourth or fifth dimension ascension, a more of a awakening. I do believe in that because we're becoming more aware of a lot of things that's happening around us. But and then people like yourself and myself and and other experiences out there. I mean, we're getting to the point now we can't shut up anymore. We got to speak it out because people need to know this. People need to know it, and people shouldn't be
All
afraid
right.
to speak up.
All right. Little backstory for everybody. We got time for a backstory time.
Yeah, go for it, man. Go for it. Hey,
there's,
I'm here for you, mate.
there's members in the so-called intelligence community, and I mean this wholeheartedly. Just because it's called intelligence doesn't mean certain people are very intelligent. And I just want to underline that and put some pretty stars around, that what I just said. But years ago, there was a big faction within the CIA. Half of these guys wanted the truth out. The other half of these guys wanted to squander it and say no. And they've been fighting for a long time. Now,
is this the one where Bush actually tried to put a stop to this?
well, yeah, he was involved later on, but I'm going,
Yeah.
for a little bit further back.
I'll
There was a
shut up.
guy.
Let you go. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this might cause a little bit of a stink, but
Yeah.
if people want to do their research, they can go right
Yeah.
ahead. I mean, I live this. I don't pay attention to what's going on Twitter or whatever. I've gotten my dose of ufology and the sandbox and people pulling each other's hair, going, "That's mine, that's mine." I can't. No, I mean, this is my life. I can't be irresponsible with my life. I dealt with too much, man, way too much. But years ago, there was a guy by the name of Joseph Firmage. He was 16 years old and he invented websites, not the new websites. He invented the idea of websites. By the time he was 19, he had a $3 billion Silicon Valley business building websites for companies all over the world. He had his first UFO experience up close, left the company, took about $23 million and built a lab in Utah. And he's got about a 200 IQ. If you Google him, you'll see he's got DWIs, depression. People attack him all the time. Typical ufology stuff. If you blow boogers, you're demonized for it. But genius of a man. So what he wanted to do, instead of working on his $3 billion company, is he wanted to figure out this technology. He saw it, 200 IQ. I want to know how it works. So he started a company. Now I'm going to slow down so people can really hear what I'm saying here. His company is called InterNASA, International Academy of Science and Arts. Okay. So all these guys in the CIA that wanted disclosure happening got on board with him. He figured out some really cool technology, by the way. I got to see the prototypes. We became friends. There were some guys in the CIA standing around his desk, and he was showing a prototype of two magnets spinning away from each other. And when that happens, you eventually get an electromagnetic drag. And the drag slows down, the magnets stop, and then you have to push them again, and then they'll go for a while. And then the electromagnetic drag sets in. Well, one day he's sitting at his sister's house, and his niece had a little top with a little, handle on the top of it, just sticks out like that. And she's spinning it, having fun on the kitchen floor. And Joe, he's just being Joe, observing gravity taking hold of this top. And it starts to wobble, just like the earth wobbles when gravity takes hold. He starts thinking about the precession of the equinox, the Earth's wobble, and all this mathematics start flowing through his brain. So he runs right back to the office, gets in the lab, and he starts to calibrate his magnets to go against the electromagnetic drag. And he reversed the electromagnetic drag, and this damn thing started speeding up like you wouldn't believe. The housing that was holding this thing together was 200 pounds, and it lifted up off the table. The magnets slowed down by themselves, shot out a blue beam, slowed down again, and then gently went to the table. Now this, Mr. B, is not connected to a computer. It's not connected to electricity. It's just two magnets. And this thing produced an electricity type that no one's ever seen. It's not AC. It's not DC. And it mimicked what you would see with a UFO, anti-gravity, this blue light, the whole 9 yards. So these guys were gathered around. They're looking at the prototype, and one of them says, "That reminds me of the Eric Mitchell case." Well, Joe went, "Who's Eric Mitchell? I've studied every case out there." And one of them said, "I know Hal Putoff was there, Jim Semivan. There were several guys. The old crew is what they call it, but they're out there now." But so Joe, being the guy he is, he sent me a friend request, and then immediately calls me through Facebook, and he says, "Quick, tell me what it looked like and how did it affect your body and how did it move?" So I started getting, I'm telling him. All of a sudden he's laughing, and I said, "Look, I don't know who you are. I'm not going to do your radio show if you're going to heckle me, man." He said, "No, no, 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 no." He said, I'm not doing a radio show. I'm a scientist, and everything that you just said to me falls into exactly the science I've been working on for years." He said, "I know you're the real deal." He said, "These guys behind me just told me about you, and you're the real thing." So that's how I met Joe, and we ended up spending about 6 hours on. He got me on my laptop. I had to punch in some codes and get into his thing, and he showed me the prototypes. And the first thing I asked him, and I said, "Why did you slow down the video, right when the arc came out so you can look at the arc?" He said, "No, Eric." He said, "When the energy dispersed from the magnets slowed down by themselves." And I went, "Oh my God." And he said, "Yep." And I said, "Well, who else knows about this?" And he started grinning at me like like maybe I guessed it right. I said, "Joe, that's consciousness. That is the substance of consciousness coming from that device." And he said, "Man, I work with a lot of physicists and not a damn one have guessed that yet." And I went, son of a, because I already knew from my own experiences. So it really explained a lot to me. My jaw was on the floor for a long time. But InterNASA is still a company. They're still doing incredible mathematics, incredible physics. Last time I talked to him, and he was like, "Is Elon Musk still playing with his fireworks?" And I said, "Yeah, he is." I mean, that's
It's
how far down.
It's a wonder that they didn't get rid of him, mate. A wet job.
Well, he's on oversight. He's on oversight. He is building the engines for the Space Force. That's his job now. He's building engines for the Space Force.
Look. One thing I do believe. Right, let's get away from the 20 way, 20 bad. But I do believe a secret space force. I do believe it does exist. I reckon yes. Possibly somebody has been to Mars. Possibly. I don't know. But I'm not going to.
Yeah.
I'll be a little bit of a skeptic. But hey, anything's possible. Anything's possible.
Yeah.
They're not going to listen. I know for a fact with technology. Let's put it this way: you look at the simple GPS you've got on your smartphone, right? Now that GPS was the size of a rack machine. Like big, about yay big. About 3.5 foot wide, and they used to fit in racks and submarines. And they had them for 35 to 40 odd years before they were actually released on Civvy Street. And since then, they started on a tablet about so big. Then they shrink down. Now they're in a bloody small cell phone. But the GPS has been around for a long, long time. Nobody else knew about it. They had them on Polaris submarines and nuclear subs. That's where they had them, and it's just GPS by satellite. It's this technology's been around for a long time. And of course,
the problem is propulsion.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, the problem is propulsion systems in space. I mean, you can only do so much in space. What we do in aerodynamics, I mean, I happen to know, and I know this is classified. We've got 3 TR3B hybrids that are space bearing. Now, it would take them a long time, of course, to get to Mars or the moon. It would take a long time, but it'd be a lot faster than a shuttle
rocket.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, we do have those, but it would take an act of Congress to get them off the ground. I mean, they're highly secretive. Hush hush, more hush than the SR-71 Blackbird.
Didn't they say the Navy actually put in a patent of a TRB-3?
Yeah. I've read all the patents.
Yeah, they've already. U.S. Navy actually put the patents in. Yeah, I read about that.
The problem is with the patent office is the same problem the DoD has with hiding things. You have to hide things at aerospace companies. You cannot actively, as the DoD, build one of these TR-3Bs. So what you're looking at And the patent office is the original. The hidden ones, that's I'm pretty sure it's at Northrop and Grumman.
Yeah,
But
well,
that's the hidden stuff. I
they
mean,
don't come under
China can
the
go ahead and
they don't come under the
China can go.
freedoms of information, you know.
No, no. China can go into the patent office, pull the patent out, and go, "Hey, we'll go build our own." So they keep that. That's why we have black projects, to keep all these things black. But I can't get off the story now because what he's building is what's called an Acceleron 9 motor. You've got to say motor because if you say motor, everybody gets mad because they're nerds there. So it's the
Motor.
Acceleron 9 motor. Yes, it has
Okay.
to be cool. And it is cool. It's great. I mean, it's unbelievable technology. We're talking about estimated calculations of getting from here to the moon in 2 minutes and here to Mars in five. Okay. They're still prototypes. They're not flying yet, but they're building the engines for them. So that is the guy. Now, years later, since Joe, Joe and InterNASA, I'm going to say it again, International Academy of Science and Arts. To some people listening, they're going to be listening to that name and go, why does that name sounds familiar? Joe wasn't getting enough PR out there. He just wasn't popular enough. He wasn't famous enough. I mean, he's done some really cool things, but he wasn't popular enough to get this disclosure thing moving. And here comes along Blink 182 rock star Tom DeLonge. And Tom DeLonge is informed that you're going to start a company that's called To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? And it was the
Yeah.
same guys in the CIA, and it was all the same people. And they said, by the way, we have the technology to do this. No, they don't. They don't have Joe's technology. They don't have his patents. They don't know how it works. So that was a lie right off of the bat. But they used Tom DeLonge's popularity to really get disclosure moving. Now, I'm not against whatever they did because they got a lot of stuff out and that was great. But this is an orchestrated, purposeful disclosure. And they are siphoning it one by one. They're getting people with NDAs left and right. People are on television. Half of those people have NDAs and they're talking heads. And when it's time for them to be allowed to talk about certain things, they tell them you're allowed to talk about the Tic Tac. Now you're allowed to talk about this. George Knapp, Channel 8, now you're allowed to talk about this. So it's oversight. It's constant oversight for this steady flow of disclosure to come through. What really bothers me is experiencers. That's the part that's going to be left out. And guess what? They know all about it. They know all about it. And they have been using people in the DoD to remove implants, test the sociology, the psychology, the change that you go through, the neurology, the whole nine yards. And when servicemen and women sign up for the military, you sign your butt up for whatever they tell you to do. So, that's the whole thing with Dr. Gary Nolan at Stanford University. If you don't know anything about that, you've got to check that out because that's where it's at. But they've mapped all this out with Christopher Green. I think the first testing on experiences started in 1962. Travis Walton was tested on immediately after he was brought back, and he had the same brain anomaly as all experiencers do. So it's there, and um, I took as much information as I could to several different universities about 5 years ago, and we're still working on a lot of different things. I mean, there's so much information coming through. If you are an experiencer at home and you're shy about it now, give it a little while because it's going to come out. I mean, the disclosure people doesn't want the experiencer thing to come out, but it's going to happen. People like me are out there and we're kicking butt. I'm not going to stop. But I have the information, I've got the data, I've got additional data from other universities collating with that data, and there's more things to look at. Every time you turn around, there's more creative ways to look at the experiencer and really see,
Well,
different sciences and stuff like that. But that's what pisses me off,
look,
that,
people say to me, Terry, or Mr. B or whatever, they say, why do you post all this stuff on your page, right? On your profile page. I mean, half of it's bullshit. And I tell them, I said, look, yeah, okay. I know that, but people have got to realize that for themselves. It's not for me to say what they should know,
Yeah.
what they should believe. Hey, my truths are my truths. What I want to believe is up to me. It's not. I'm not what they call the internet police. Look, mate. Hey, Facebook jail, mate. That's me. I've been crucified a few times with Facebook because I didn't do a fact check. You know, I mean, the
Yeah.
information is. I mean, some of the stuff is no facts to it, so they punish me for it. Hey, don't they think adults understand that themselves? What are their sensitive feelings going to get so upset that
Yeah.
somebody's posting fairy tales or whatever, or somebody's doing some really good artwork that looks real? I mean, you've got to give people the intelligence to understand this. It's not for me to say, "Oh, that's like." I'm not going to tell somebody, "No, that's bullshit." I'm not going to say that. That's not my place to say that.
Yeah.
They've got to find out for themselves. It's like, wake up, people, wake up. You're an adult. You know what's real and what's not real. You know what Star Trek is. You know what SG-1's all about. They're movies. You know,
Hmm.
let's get feet on
Yeah.
the
But
ground.
that's
Because we're talking about something
but
dead
that's
serious here.
yeah. But that's what you have, Mister B. It's like mom and dad getting a divorce, and that's what really happened with the CIA is they both butted heads. We want disclosure. We don't want disclosure. So, ufology are the children to this. So they're getting real information and disinformation and more disinformation and less real information. And it just becomes this big mess where everybody's in the sandbox pulling each other hair, going, "No, I'm right. No, I'm right." And
Yeah. And
who's
the
left out of
biggest
this?
joke about this? The more bullshit they want to throw at it, the more obvious it becomes. They're only going to
Yeah,
kill them.
yeah,
They're going to drown themselves in their own crap, mate. That's all.
yeah.
With
So when
disinformation.
people Yeah, so when people like you and I come along, it's automatic BS. Automatic BS. Isn't that just perfect poetry? That
Yeah.
the real thing comes out and it's BS. Real lives, real blood, real sweat, real tears, real PTSD, the real shit you have to live with and go to every single day of your life. I can't blend in with anybody out there. They have no
Mm.
clue about the work I do 24/7, right
Well,
here at this desk,
I find it very
helping
difficult to
people.
talk to my own wife and family about it. Myself.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
but
Well,
they
yeah,
accept me
that's
for
the
who
thing.
I am.
That's
And they do their thing, I do mine. With it.
Yeah, well, I would have a wife, but can you imagine the third date? It's like, oh, Melissa, I really like you, and you're just an amazing person. Um, there's some things I want to talk to you about before the fourth date. It never seems to get past that one spot. My life's different. It's
Mm,
like Batman, for God's sakes. It's not.
yeah.
I don't live a normal life whatsoever. I mean, whatsoever. And
Mm,
I won't stop until every last person like us gets some sort of help, vitrification towards the people that deserve it and need it, advocacy towards everyone that's suffered out there. And, it's not just the husband, it's not just the wife. I've known people that have been in bed for 30 years and never knew that their significant other was an experiencer. That's how well we hide it, because it's shameful, and I don't
I
know
hope
why it's shameful.
I hope you can invite some people to share their stories as well. I mean, we can use
Yeah.
this platform for them to speak out.
Well,
I mean, they got my support,
Mr.
and
Mr. B, I only have access to 10,000 experiencers. So it's
well,
the show's only going to last 100 years. Sorry.
yeah. Anyway, listen, I think well, it's coming to the closing hour, I imagine, and we can carry on. We can carry on later on, Eric, and in another time and another day, and carry on where we left off. But also to let's see if we can get somebody else on board, and we can have a bit more of a round table. That's what I reckon.
Oh, we can definitely do that. We can definitely do that.
That I'll be looking forward to it, and
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll think of.
thank you for joining the team, mate. I much appreciate that.
Oh, it's more than a pleasure. It's more than, you know what? If some of our off-air conversations were on air, people would just be, and they would be blown away. But yeah, I mean, Hey, folks at home listening, I really can't, you know, put it out there more heartfelt enough that even though people like myself and Mr. B are left out of this whole mess that's going on, is more truth in people like us than what you're going to find anywhere else, because we've lived it, we've gone through it, and I mean, man, I watched my kids go through this with me. They grew up under a MUFON investigation. So there's nothing like a father wanting to protect a child from something. So it's a real painful thing to me. It's a life's quest, and I'm looking forward to share any intel or inside information that I can put out there for you.
Anyway, thank you very much, Eric. And anyway, this is Mr. B, and we're going to call it a night. And thank you very much, everybody that's joined us. And remember, like and subscribe, because we're going to be here for you, and we'll try to bring out the truth to you wherever we can. So have a good evening, everybody, or morning, or wherever you are in the world. So it's another day. So it is another day for me. It's nearly 1 o'clock in the morning for me. So anyway, so you hang on there for a moment there, Eric. I'll get back to you in a minute, mate, and I'll catch you shortly, mate. Okay. Thank you very much.
Tell son of a B I said hi.
I'm trying to get my son of a B here too, mate. I'll catch you later. Just hang on a bit. I'll be with you in a moment, mate. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. And remember, it's not just lift each other up, but aspire to inspire each other. And be kind, be nice to each other. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Have you any idea how successful censorship is on TV? Don't know the answer? Successful, isn't it?